Welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm Kathleen Walter. A scathing critique of the Obama administration is now coming from the left. The former editor-in-chief of Harper's magazine, Roger Hodge, is out with a brand new book detailing why he believes President Obama has failed to enact liberal reform. It's called The Mendacity of Hope, Barack Obama and the Betrayal of American Liberalism. Welcome to Newsmax TV, Roger.
Thank you.
From audacity of hope to mendacity of hope, where did President Obama go wrong?
Well, I think Obama is doing precisely what he set out to do. The problem is that he set up expectations and motivated a large portion of the citizenry with a rhetoric of change and hope that was fraudulent from the beginning.
Well, he's been called the most radical president in U.S. history. A Rasmussen poll finds voters think that he is more liberal than they are. Why is it that you believe Obama betrayed American liberalism and that real reform was never on the table?
Well, I think it is not the case that Obama has been a particularly radical president. I think he was confronted with some radical circumstances, but he has governed as a cautious moderate, if anything. And I think that the best way to understand American politics is to look at the investors who are behind the parties, the big ticket political contributors, and the Democratic Party investors are, the large investors are primarily Wall Street firms, high-tech firms, insurance companies, and they have done very well under this administration.
So even though one of his campaign promises was to end corruption in Washington, you say that it's business as usual.
I think it's clearly business as usual. You just look at the numbers.
All right. Well, you critique President Obama's failures to live up to several of his campaign promises. Was the president sincere or cynical in making those promises?
I think he was cynical. I think he's not any different from the typical American machine politician. I think you have to understand that modern political machines are predicated on corporate contributions in one way or another. You have different coalitions of business interests that are competing, and the two parties compete for the privilege of who will represent the interests of the super rich. So Obama is a product of the system. He's no more mendacious than any other politician. He just happens to be very successful at getting elected.
Okay. A new Bloomberg poll out this week finds that more than 4 of 10 likely voters who say they once considered themselves President Obama's backers now are either less supportive or they say that they no longer support him at all. Why do you think that is? And did voters deceive themselves into thinking that Obama was the answer?
Well, I do think that his supporters deceived themselves. That's the flip side of the mendacity of hope. It's not just the book is not just an attack on Obama, although it is that, and I'm very scathing, I have to say. But it's also an analysis of the way voters fooled themselves. People were lying to themselves about what was possible given the corruption of our system. And the larger thrust of the book is an analysis of the corruption that pervades our political system.
Now, Obama's job approval rating is at a lowly 29%, according to one poll. A number of White House advisors have jumped ship. Does this suggest perhaps bigger problems or chaos behind the scenes?
It might. It's not that unusual for there to be turnover in the White House. It's a soul-killing job, I'm sure. It's really not unusual for people to leave. What normally happens is that people wait until after the midterm. Whether this is politically advantageous or not, we'll find out.
Okay. Well, Republicans are anticipating the midterm elections will produce a political tsunami for the GOP. How is the Tea Party movement and its message of less spending, lower taxes, and less intrusive government impacting the Obama presidency? And do you see President Obama triangulating then to the center?
Oh, I think triangulation is the word of the hour. I think Obama is better at it than Clinton in some ways, or at least is trying harder. He's not quite as talented at connecting one-on-one with voters as Clinton was. I think the Tea Party movement is having an effect. I hope that people who are interested in, who are part of the Tea Party movement and who are interested in smaller government and who are critical of the unholy marriage between big government and big business, which is really the root of our problem, will be receptive to my arguments, because I do spend a lot of time talking about the Madisonian theory of government. James Madison is the hero of the book, and I think that we need, I think getting back to the original understanding of government of the founders is a good thing, but the crucial point to make is that the founders were not unitary. There were very, very fierce divisions, and the Madisonian argument, which sees government as a disinterested umpire between different competing interests, is the one that I think we need to get back to.
Roger, what do you think President Obama should do differently to win over independents that many say that he's lost? And what about the disappointed progressives? Where do they go from here?
Well, it's hard to know. I think that progressives have to get used to the idea that the Democratic Party will betray them every single time. And I think the Tea Partiers will learn eventually that the Republican Party will betray them every single time. Both parties are catering to the interests of the super rich, the top 1%, and the rest of us are out in the cold. And what we need to do is forget about these two parties and create alliances. The angry left and the angry right have more in common with one another than they do with our corporate overlords. What we need to do is build new civic associations, not necessarily parties, but eventually perhaps parties. The problem is that the two parties have a lock on the system. It's a shadow constitution that subverts the written constitution, and the two parties are the problem. So what the Tea Partiers need to do and what the progressives need to do is find ways to work together.
All right, well, Roger, another one of the solutions that you write about in the book to fix what ails the nation, you write only class warfare can, that hope isn't enough. What would you say to people who fear that that solution could be a step down the road to socialism?
Well, I don't think there's any real danger of socialism in the United States. What we have and what could get worse is, as I said, this unholy alliance between big government and big business, which is corporatism. And what we need to do, when I talk about class warfare, it's somewhat tongue-in-cheek, I have to say. But the point is that Americans are not being selfish enough. We need to watch out for our own self-interests, our own material interests, and not the material interests of the corporations. They are very good at doing that themselves. The rest of us who are not being served, our interests are not being served, we need to assert our economic and material interests and work together as people in the lower and middle classes to advance those interests.
All right, Roger, last question real quickly. There is a Gallup poll that shows that American politics are more divided than ever before, yet President Obama was supposed to be the great uniter. What, in your opinion, might he have done differently to avoid America's house divided, going from bad to worse?
Well, I think divisiveness is good. We do have different interests, and democracy, Republican government, is supposed to be an uproar. It is not supposed to be smooth, bipartisan, pacific government. That makes no sense. We have different interests. We should be fighting. We should be arguing with one another. And the idea that bipartisanship is the natural state of government is frankly ridiculous.
All right, the book is The Mendacity of Hope. Roger Hodge, congratulations on the book, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.